When I hear 17 again, I think of this, not this, the original 17 again, because the movie that most people think about when they hear that is not the one that comes to mind for me. This movie came 9 whole years before Zac Efron picked up a basketball. We meet the main characters within the first 5 minutes of the movie, so let's get into the characters. And then, of course, I have thoughts that, I will be sharing along the way, of course. At the beginning of the movie, we meet Willie, who's played by Tahj Mowry, who is the younger brother to the main characters of the movie. We can also tell that this family is well off because, number one, why do you have a whole basement full of equipment? One of the things that this movie did well was the positive representation. And the more I think about it, many of the 90s and 2000s sitcoms and movies really showed Black families in more middle-class environments. Fresh Prince gave us the Banks family with the big house in Bel Air, and Hillary, who bought an outfit every episode, right? Like a new outfit every episode. A Different World put Black students at an HBCU who were pursuing degrees and having regular college drama. Living Single had 4 Black women in New York City with careers in their own apartment, and nobody was about to lose it. The Cosby Show had a doctor and a lawyer raising kids in a brownstone, I believe. Yeah. Family Matters had Carl Winslow, who was a Chicago police officer with a house and a neighborhood and a family that was just fine. They were doing well. They weren't perfect, but they weren't desperate either. And to me, 17 again fits right into this world. The Donovan family has a house big enough for grandparents to stay. Willie has his lab. Their parents can just pick up and travel when a family member needs them. Nobody in this family is worried about money in a way that drives the plot. And a comment that was left on my Ditzy video really summed this up. I'll leave it on the screen, but it really got me thinking about why that is, because the audience is still there. Black people did not stop watching television. Black people didn't stop wanting to see themselves on screen, but it's really, in my opinion, because of the people who are greenlighting the shows, and of course, it all goes down to money. If you want me to do a video on that, I can, but honestly, that's the full answer. But the point of that ramble was to say that I loved to see a Black family just living. His parents letting him use what I'm assuming is the basement for his son to be a scientist. After getting over the fact that this kid has a whole dedicated space for his experiment, we learn that he's creating an anti-aging formula and using a rose to test this. If the rose doesn't wilt, then he will know that his actual experiment worked. Now, I understand the premise because the story won't work unless someone is actively trying to find a way to make this work, but I wasn't sure why the younger brother was interested in that. Like, what was the driving factor here? We later realize why, but for now, he's setting the stage. Shortly after his experiment looks to have failed, he's quickly scooped up and taken out of the house. And as he's getting scooped up by the firefighters, he knocks over part of the rose that has a liquid, and we see some of it has spilled and spread to the soap inside the box. Dun dun dun. It's then that we meet one of the main characters, Sydney, who is 17 and is played by Tamera Mowry. And at this point, I'm trying to figure out how all that smoke is going off and she's calm. But this clearly is just a normal day for her, and she's not fazed at all that her little brother has gotten the fire department involved. We can also see that she's on the way to work, and that's probably the last thing you want to deal with before clocking in. The only question I had when I was looking at her name tag was, girl, why are you working? We've already seen the house, but I think this is more like a teenager building responsibility than a teenager keeping the lights on for the family, which further emphasizes the point that they aren't disconnected, although they seem to be well off. Like, this family is comfortable, but they're not raising soft kids. They have resources and they have values, and also that having money doesn't mean that your kids don't have responsibilities. Now, me personally, I would have used that as an excuse to call out of work, but even still, with her brother causing chaos, she still goes to work. So we can see what her character is like just in those few moments. We learned that Sydney's family just moved from California all the way to Connecticut, and that her dad got remarried after her mom passed away. I don't think the movie goes into how much time has actually passed since her mother died, but I feel like we need a pause here. The dad moves the family to another state for a fresh start, which means he takes both of his kids away from their friends and I'm sure other family members to start over with his new wife. But I guess if they wanted a fresh start, it makes sense for both the dad and the stepmom to leave, but it really sucks for Sydney and Willie. At least Sydney only has to suffer for a year before she's an adult and can leave for college or whatever she chooses to do. But Poor Willie. However, don't fear. A cute boy can help you feel less homesick, and he is pretty cute. And no, I'm not talking about Mr. White Chocolate, who really annoys me throughout this movie, even though he probably had less than 5 lines in the entire movie. But I'm talking about Todd. We realize that Sydney is struggling to find her way as she's literally starting over at a new school while also processing her mother's death. And you know this would not be a 2000s movie if we didn't have a bully. We find out that Todd's sister is none other than Ashley, who is bullying Sydney. But before I get back to Sydney, let's talk about Ashley. She is gorgeous. But one thing I didn't like about this movie was that the darker skinned character has to be the bully. Like, I get they needed someone to cause some tension, but I hated it at the same time because why does the dark skinned character have to be jealous of the lighter skinned character? Could this just have been a light skin versus light skin crime? And y'all should know by now, I'm a pattern girl and I've seen the patterns. Bring It On had Gabrielle Union as the more outspoken and stern personality, while her lighter skinned partner was just following along with her. Tony Childs is the selfish and mean friend in the group. Think about Dejanay from the Proud Family. She's darker skinned. She's the loud one, the one that's constantly throwing Penny under the bus and getting her in trouble. Meanwhile, Penny, who's the lighter skinned character, is always the sympathetic lead that we are rooting for. Niecy and Moesha, she was darker skinned. She was presented as the messy, dramatic, problematic friend in the group. I feel like every 2000s film where there's a mean girl or a jealous friend is set up like this. So we see this again played out in this movie. There's not a lot of information on the dad, whose name is Barry, and the stepmom, whose name is Monique, as they're not really in the movie for longer than like 10 minutes. We also meet Grandma Cat, who is seen with Monique at the salon. She's supposed to be 67, but she looks good. And we can tell that she's clearly trying to make sure she looks good for Grandpa Gene, or at least let him know what he's missed out on, which honestly, real. You would not catch me looking a mess for someone who I used to care about, even if I moved on. So I get it. We then officially meet Grandpa Gene, who I already don't like. He has a smart mouth and he's super moody when clearly he's the problem. But we could tell that Barry is a pushover and doesn't really have a backbone either. And I don't care if you're my dad or not. My dad would not be talking crazy about my mom, divorced or not. I know perhaps the biggest point here was to highlight that in most cases, Black people aren't out here talking crazy to their parents. But I also feel like he could have checked him in a respectful way. Not to mention, they've been divorced for 20 years and you're still acting like that? No. So at this point, I think Barry is weak and Grandpa Gene is delusional. But we soon find out that Barry and Monique are leaving because he promised a family member that he would be there for the birth of her baby. But at this point, I'm still giving Grandpa Gene and Barry the side eye. Although Kat and Gene both seem to have negative, strong feelings towards each other, they halfway get it together for their grandchildren. After making it through dinner, they both get ready for bed by taking a bath. They use the magical soap from the beginning and that's it. Until they wake up and we see Grandma Kat, who is now much younger and is played by Tamera. She has a pep in her step and she doesn't waste any time, and I would be doing the same thing. Now, I forgot to mention, before she does her like little transformation, they pan over to younger Grandpa Gene as Grandma Kat is getting ready to go to bed. Now, I had to do a double take. That man was a fine, okay? I'll tell you right now, I don't like a mouthy man, but I see the appeal. This was my Zac Efron moment. Just seeing him in that frame. Ooh, if you put both of them side by side, Grandpa Gene and Zac Efron, I forgot what his name was in that movie, Grandpa Gene is the clear winner. I don't care. So while the transformation is going on, we now see Sydney trying to make the most of her situation, and she tries out for the cheerleading team, and we meet Ashley again, as well as her brother, who I'm not sure, is he a cheerleader or is he a football player? I really don't remember. Y'all let me know in the comments. I'm not gonna say that Sydney killed it, with her audition, but she had enthusiasm, kind of like how Niecy from BAP started dancing and Mickey was hyping her up. Yeah, That's what it was giving, but I'm sticking beside Sydney, okay? But since they wanted to position Ashley as the bully, she promptly ignores her performance and goes to the next girl. She played right in Sydney's face, okay? I do appreciate the fact that Todd doesn't disrespect his sister outright. Like, we can tell he doesn't agree, but he also doesn't act crazy towards her, which I'm happy to see. And like I said, I am going to spend a little bit of time with the first scene that we see Grandpa Gene in his younger version. When he was in that car getting pulled over by that police officer, yeah, I can see how he got away with being so mouthy at the time. When Grandma Cat and Grandpa Gene and Sydney are all in the school together, I didn't like the fact that Ashley was doing most of the work when she was first introduced to Grandpa Gene. Let's get over the fact that they enroll in school, even though they don't even know the side effects or how long it will last. But when Ashley sees him in the gym, she has to go over to him and invite him out to a club. Like, first you make my girl the bully, and then you make her desperate. And I will agree and I will say, yes, he is fine, but I don't like how his character is written. Like, he can't rap and he's always having these emotional outbursts that show how moody and sassy he can be. Not to mention, he's still going back and forth with Grandma Cat, which just seals the deal for me. However, he's not a complete idiot, as he does take Ashley on her offer to go to the club, but then is pretty much paying her dust when they get there. He's looking everywhere but at her in the movie, which kudos to him, because I think Ashley was the prettiest character in this movie. You know, I'm not saying that Tia and Tamera weren't pretty, but Ashley was so pretty. But it showed that he still had feelings for Grandma Cat, so that is admirable and makes me like him a little more than before. Around the same time, we realized that Willie was initially working on this experiment because he wanted his dog to live for a longer time. Willie also realizes that he messed up and the formula he has created has actual side effects, and he begins to work on creating an antidote. But I want to get on to the scene that really annoyed me. Sydney in this scene has the nerve to get mad at Grandma Cat for dancing with Todd and going on a date, but she also knows that it's Grandma Cat. I'm sorry, but if I knew my 67-year-old grandma was 50 years younger and wanted to dance with a cute guy that I also thought was cute, please have fun. Like, and I know some of y'all might not agree with me, but I would be cheering her on. Like, I feel like Sydney should have known from the get-go that Grandma Cat was doing all of that to make Grandpa Gene jealous. Like, let's put two and two together and make it four, please. You clearly see that Grandpa Gene is right next to them, and this is all happening, and Sydney has the nerve to act betrayed. And then, if that isn't enough, she insults Grandma Cat by telling her she can tank her own relationship with Gene, but not her man. Oh, okay. Now, they eventually make up and have a heart-to-heart, but I don't think I would have been the bigger person in this situation because Sydney was wrong for that, in my opinion. But clearly, Grandma Cat is a much better person than I am, so I'm happy they got together and are on the same side again. We then finally realized that the whole issue between Grandma Cat and Grandpa Gene was because they couldn't communicate. We find out that 20 years ago, Gene was offered a job in Australia, and Cat was afraid of the change and the move, but she felt like she couldn't tell him that he couldn't go. No offense to anyone who lives in Australia watching this video, but I've seen the spiders and the other insects, and I wouldn't want to go either. But Grandma Cat couldn't tell Grandma Gene that she wanted him to stay for her, and hopefully he would pick her over the job, but instead of telling him that, she became really hard to deal with, and they were always arguing, and he was also in another country while all this was happening. So those things are what made the relationship tank. But she said something that made me really sad for her. She had said in the movie that she convinced herself that if he loved her, that he would come back, which tells us that she really never gave up on him. She was just waiting for proof that she was worth choosing. And of course, the proof never came. Although Grandma Cat admitted to this, I also appreciated the fact that Grandpa Gene also acknowledged his part as well. In the movie, he admits at the time that he was selfish and only thinking about himself and the new opportunity. But rather than investigating why his wife had become difficult to be around, he still chose his job and eventually gave her the divorce she filed for rather than coming home to fix the marriage. He also admits to this during their dance, but I wonder what would have happened if she did communicate her fears. Would he have listened? I kind of doubt it though, since he was so excited about the opportunity. I don't think he would have stayed, and as women, sometimes we just know. Like, you don't want to be the one who actually asked and still got told no. So maybe baby grandma Kat already knew this because telling someone you need them to stay and watching them leave anyway, that's even worse. But obviously, this is all speculation and no one really knows, but that's my opinion. What we do know is that they both realize what they missed in the time apart and they work on fixing it. The movie ends with Kat and Jean choosing each other, the antidote works, then they go back to their real ages, but they go back different, softer, they're not punishing each other from the past, and Sydney gets the boy, she gets her friend, she figures out her place, and the oblivious and selfish father comes back home to see his parents in love again. Okay, so let's fast forward to 2009, 9 years after the original version. Hollywood made 17 again with Zac Efron and a $20 million budget. It was #1 at the box office opening weekend, 64 million total. Roger Ebert reviewed it, and if y'all are new to this channel, he was also the same man that reviewed Baps and gave it like 0 stars, I think. So we don't really like him around here. Apparently, lots of people love to hear his opinions on movies, so I felt like it was worth mentioning him again. This movie is the same concept. The person gets young again, he learns lessons, and he gets a second chance. But here's the difference. In the Zac Efron version, the second chance belongs to a man who just wants to feel wanted again. His young body is the whole reward. And there's this really uncomfortable mini plot where his own daughter develops a crush on him while he's in his teenage body. And if that isn't weird enough, his wife feels pulled towards this teenager who looks like her husband. But in the Mowry version, the second chance belongs to a Black grandmother who spent 20 years waiting to be chosen. This version is deeper, it's more honest, and it's more real. But one of them got the $20 million budget and the movie theaters. The Mowry version got a Showtime cable slot. And eventually, Disney also picked it up. But that's how Erasure works. Nobody has to say your story doesn't matter. They just don't spend money on it or give it the wide release. And most people will never know that unless someone tells them. So here I am telling you. Okay, real quick before I end this video, I did some digging and I wanted to share some things I learned. This is the only movie where Tia and Tamera didn't play sisters. So Tamera played the younger version of Tia's grandmother, which is crazy to me. This film also won Best Work in Progress at the American Black Film Festival. It was produced by their actual mother, Tia and Tamera's mother, Darlene Mowry. Sean Stockman, who was in Boyz II Men, also did the soundtrack where he blended 1940s jazz with 90s R&B. And unfortunately, that soundtrack was never officially released, but you can go on YouTube to find it. When Tia and Mark Taylor, the man who played the younger version of Jean, when they reunited for a Lifetime Christmas movie in 2021, Tia joked on camera that he must have found the soap again because he doesn't age. Like, if you know, you know, right? Like, that's cute. Meanwhile, the 2009 Efron film got a South Korean remake called 18 Again, and that was in 2020. And they also got a full stage musical in 2023. I feel like this movie deserved so much more than what it got. Not because it was perfect, but because it was ours. Because it centered Black women and Black love, and of course, a Black family. And I wonder what this movie would have looked like if it had a $20 million budget. But I also feel like if Hollywood had picked it up, it would have leaned too heavy into more negative stereotypes. And I don't think the movie would have been as wholesome because we clearly see what the Zac Efron version highlighted, which again is so gross to me. But if you haven't seen the original 17 Again movie, and honestly that's the only version that I claim, you have got to watch it. It's on Tubi, Amazon Prime, and it was on Netflix at one point, but I'm not sure if it's still up there. And if you get nothing else from this video, Tia and Tamera did it first. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comments below and like this video if you liked it. And of course, subscribe if you want to see more from me. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.